Welcome back. It's the new month, and therefore we are doing the Paths series. And today I'm going to have a look, or should I rather say, attempt to try and explain traditional witchcraft. And I say attempt because this is it's one of the most difficult paths to try and explain and describe because it is so diverse. Even before more modern branches of what we could call traditional witchcraft came about. Traditional witchcraft itself is a very well. Let's put it this way. I mean, we use terms such as the crooked path and the nameless art. The nameless art is something which just cannot be defined or described. So, that kind of says most of it. The crooked path is one that winds and twists as opposed to the straight and narrow track. So if we refer to the straight and narrow track, it's that path which just leads straight from one point to the next. It's well defined. It's you are given a particular dogma which you follow, and you stick to the rules, and you continue along this straight and narrow track or path. Whereas the crooked path winds. It goes backwards and forwards like a snake, like a serpent. And what happens is, as you are venturing down the crooked path, you come to certain areas where you pause and you stop, and then you track your next journey, where you want to go to next. And it can take you in various different directions. So to try and narrow traditional witchcraft down into a single description or interpretation is, well, I'd actually say impossible. So, all I can do is give you a starting point, a guidance to where to go. So there's a lot of authors that I'm going to recommend within this particular explanation of a path. So when we are looking at traditional witchcraft, it is different to Wicca. The two do overlap a lot. After Gardner created the path of Wicca, along came Robert Cochrane, who created Cochraneite craft, and it was very much in opposition to Gardner himself and Wicca. It was Robert Cochrane who actually coined the term Gardnerian, and it was originally meant as an insult. But Robert Cochrane came along, and this was really the birthing of modern traditional witchcraft. And when we say traditional, we are looking at a lot of reclaiming of reviving certain practices. So there is a large emphasis on contacting the ancestors in reclaiming memory of how our ancestors would have done particular things, particular rituals, particular workings, particular, how they would have viewed particular philosophies and things like how they connect with the land, how they work with the land and the spirits of the land and things like that. So there is a large emphasis on the ancestral rites, on tapping the bone, which is reviving that memory of the ancestors. There's also a large emphasis on working with the land. Now, this can get quite involved in that, it's not just about recognition of the seasons and how things change around you. And as you move from one land to a different land, those changes are going to be completely different. So, a lot of traditional witches won't even fit or fix to the Sabbats and the equinoxes and solstices. A lot will. They will continue recognizing those. But what you'll find is a lot will break away from that, and they will rather fit in with seasonal changes which are very particular to the land they are situated in. And that may incorporate certain hurricane seasons, when the snow starts to fall and such things. So, there are all these changes that happen within the land. But it's not just that, it goes deeper. It works with the spirits of the land. It's communication with the spirits of the land. And it's not necessarily that you are on a particular land where a particular tradition may be organic or indigenous to that land. It's very much about connecting with the actual land that you are situated on. And if you are resituated, if, like myself, for instance, I was born in England, in Coventry, and when I was almost 11, my parents moved to South Africa. So I now live in South Africa. I've lived here for, how many years is it now? 40, I don't know, I forget, 42, I think. So I forget how long I've been here. It's been so long. But this is where I live now. And therefore, I connect with the land that I am in. And it's not just the land of South Africa, it is the land of Fourways, where I am particularly am. It's no good me trying to connect with the land of Cape Town, because the seasons are different. Well, not the seasons themselves, as in the larger seasons, but the changes within the seasons are different. In Cape Town, it's raining during the winter. In Johannesburg, where I am, it's raining during the summer. So completely different climatic changes. So, it's no good me trying to connect with Cape Town, which is also in South Africa. I have to connect with Johannesburg, Fourways, where I am. And that is about recognizing the changes within the land, and the spirits within the land. So, you get very, very deep into what the land actually means to you. And getting even more intimate, even closer, is that I live in a flat. I don't have a garden of my own, so I cannot go into my garden and sit and connect with the spirits there. I have to go to a park. There are no forests nearby, so I can't go to a forest. It literally is going to a public park, where that's where I have to connect with the land. That gets somewhat difficult, because in a lot of situations, the land spirits, the spirits of the land, have been pushed out of certain areas. But they're still there. You can connect with them. You can connect with the spirits of the land which are local to you, which you may not even have considered. It's not just about nature, as in greenery and trees and things like that. Your landscape is what's around you. When I was in college, I did a course in photography, and one of the things that I learned there was that when we think of landscape, it's not just a pretty landscape of rolling hills or a forest, or trees or something like that. A landscape can be an abandoned building. That is your landscape. So, try and get closer to home, is what I'm trying to say. And use what you have available to you, and allow that to actually allow you to connect to the land itself. So there's a strong connection or strong emphasis on ancestral work because of reviving memory from the ancestors, and there's also a strong emphasis on the land itself. Now, when we get to particular practices, there are some commonalities. We don't, traditional witches don't talk about casting a circle. They talk about laying the compass, because laying the compass is putting yourself into a space which you can shift and turn. And by doing so, you can access different mythical lands, moving into the underworld and moving into these alternate realities and these lands which are beyond the physical. They are the underworld. They are under the skin of things. So, traditional witches do bring the energy into their space, depending on the work they're doing. Maybe it's the creation of an amulet or a charm or a servitor or something. So they will bring the energy into their spaces. But there is more of the moving into the lands of the ancestors, moving into the lands of the gods and the spirits themselves, rather than bring them here, which is more bringing the spirits and the energies into your space is more of an emphasis of ceremonial magic. which then can relate a lot to Wicca, especially neo-Wicca, or pop Wicca, Wiccan-esque, all these terms we used to use for Wicca, which is not initiatory Wicca. Let's put it that way. So, there are all these practices. The tools are slightly different. They are the same, but slightly different. Instead of a staff or a walking stick, we use a walking stick, but you have a stang, for instance, which is not found in ceremonial magic or Wicca, usually. We have the ritual dagger and the athame, the cauldron, which can overlap with the chalice of Wicca. So we have similar tools and items, some slight changes and differences here. The hearthstone and the skull and the crossbones are very important parts of traditional witchcraft, where they are not as important in other forms of witchcraft. But the difficulty is that traditional witchcraft is so varied and so diverse. It is part of the witchcraft umbrella, but it does and it should get a bit more specific. But I think it's bleeding over more and more and more into neo-paganism. In fact, Wikipedia actually lists traditional witchcraft under neo-pagan witchcraft now. And I can understand why. I mean, it's neo-pagan. It's new paganism. Only really modern traditional witchcraft only really developed from Cochrane. The practices themselves do extend back further because of the revival of memory of the ancestors. So there's all these overlaps, mushy, squishy, fuzzy lines between all things. But when it comes to traditional witchcraft, there are some very specific common practices that all traditional witches will practice. Laying the compass, for instance, ploughing the bloody field. All these practices are very common, very similar, but at the same time, every single traditional witch will practice differently. You'll probably find their worldview is different. It may be similar on a broad basis, but when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of things, there are some differences here and there. Because you ask 3 traditional witches to define traditional witchcraft and you'll get 5 different answers. So everybody practices differently. And I do recall in a group, somebody asked the question, are there any books out there on traditional witchcraft that really get into the mysteries, how to experience the mysteries, the rituals that really connect you with the ancestors and the deities and things like that? And the response was very good, but very confusing. There really aren't. What you'll find with books on traditional witchcraft is that they will cover the basics, how to get you moving in that particular direction. So it will cover the various gods and the goddesses. It will cover the various land spirits and the spirits of the wights, the land wights, and the house spirits, and all of these different types of spirits, the fae and such things. It'll get you into particular rituals like laying the compass, ploughing the bloody field. It'll get you started with the tools that you need, the athame, the cauldron, the whetstone, the stang, etc., etc., etc. It'll get you started in all of these things, and it'll get you moving down the road. But there's a point that you get to where words just fail. People who have experienced mysteries can talk about them with other people who have experienced mysteries, but if they try to talk about the mysteries with somebody who hasn't experienced them, it gets very difficult to explain. You can get a basic understanding, but the only way you can actually know is to experience. And therefore, traditional witchcraft is a very, very experiential path. It's not one that you can just sit, read, and understand. It's one that you have to actually work, and you have to do it, and you have to experience it. It's really the only way to understand traditional witchcraft, is to experience it. So let's get on to some authors. There's a lot of authors. All right, so some authors that have cropped up. Peter Padden, probably the best one. Peter Padden was one of the most incredible people I ever got to know personally. Peter Padden wrote the grimoire for Modern Cunning Folk. He also created a podcast which is unfortunately unavailable now. I have done extensive searching, but can't find the original podcasts. It was called The Crooked Path, but there is still a book which is being published through Pendraig Publishing, which was Peter's publishing company, which is the Crooked Path podcast transcripts. It's not all of them, but some of them, and they were absolutely fantastic. A more recent author is Roger J. Horne, who is excellent. I did do a review of one of his books, 13... I've forgotten the title now. Can't remember the title, but go and have a look back in the go and have a look at the playlist for the book reviews. You'll find Roger J. Horne in there. Call of the Horn Piper was excellent. It's Nigel Jackson. Nigel Jackson is a great traditional witchcraft author. Unfortunately, I did check. Call of the Horn Piper is now $250. A lot of these old books are out of print. They were often originally published by Mandrake Press and Capel Ban, who have gone out of business and therefore very difficult to get your hands on now. Sacred Magic, Sacred Dance is excellent. Gemma Gary's work, brilliant, largely from a Cornish traditional witch or cunning folk perspective. So if you do want to consider something regional, because this is the other thing with traditional witchcraft, what you'll find is there's a lot of regional practices because we are connecting with the land that we are on. Therefore, when you do get into the land itself, you'll find that there are particular spirits tied to that land, and you end up working with those spirits. So a lot of traditional witchcraft gets very regional. So Gemma Gary is very much focused on the Cornish. She is, I think, as far as I know, she is from Cornwall. I'm sure she is. Otherwise she wouldn't be writing about Cornish witchcraft. But yeah, so Gamma Gary is very good if you do want to get quite regional and kind of understand traditional witchcraft on that regional type of basis. Let's see, Jan Fries is great. Wrote Halruna and Caesarways, brilliant books. Robin Artisan, he was where Robin actually is the one that got me started on traditional witchcraft itself. The first thing I ever read on traditional witchcraft was the Meadows of Alfheim, which was a website. And what Robin had done, he'd taken pieces from different traditional witchcraft authors, and he had created like an adventure story. So you start on the path, and you walk down the path, you get to the cottage, and you meet the character within the cottage, and that character teaches you things. Then you can go to the standing stones or the fairy mound, or, there's all these different areas. So you choose where you want to go to next. You meet all these different characters who teach you different things about traditional witchcraft. Brilliant site. It did go down. I did bring it back. It's on my website. So go to leewjohnson.com and look in the menu for Meadows of Alfheim and go through that. That was my introduction, and I loved it. It is brilliant. It really is. Treading the Mill by Nigel G. Pearson is excellent, brilliant. But what you might find is a good idea. If you go onto Amazon, and I'll put links in the description, they are affiliate links. So if you do go follow one of the links and you go buy something from Amazon, I will get a commission, which is greatly appreciated. Thank you. So I do encourage people to use the affiliate links. But if you go onto Amazon, or you can go to Pendraig publishing directly, you'll also find these in some of them, not all of them, I don't think. You'll find some of them on Scribed, because they are on Smashwords as digital format. But these are it's journals, little magazines that they brought out, that Peter brought out, and it's a variety of different authors. When many years ago I started a self-publishing company here in South Africa, and I was publishing for, or printing, sorry, not publishing, printing for Peter, trying to bring the books to South Africa. At the time, there wasn't much of a demand, so it kind of all fell apart. But these were some of the journals that I got when that was happening. So what you'll find is there are lots of light. There are different authors within each one. Let me just try and get to. All right, here we go. So there's articles and authors in each one, and therefore what you can do is you can go through these and get a great understanding of different practices and different philosophies and ideas within traditional witchcraft, and pick out the authors and go and chase those authors down, and get a better understanding. So I'm just going to read some authors here which come up on these covers. Anne Finnan, Peter Padden, R.J. Thompson, Radomir Ristic, Raven Womack. This is another one. Lovely covers as well. Robin Artson again. Veronica Kummer, Eric de Vries, Stephen Posh, R.J. Thompson, Raven Womack, MV or Mike Ragg. I think now it's going to start repeating. Christine Kay. And those are all the same. Cherry Button. I actually don't recall Cherry Button. Or Prinny Miller. Let's just see what they wrote in here. There's also Grace Victoria Swan, who wrote an article called Northern New Mexico. You'll also find that traditional witchcraft doesn't just stick to European ideologies. There is a great emphasis on traditional witchcraft and reviving memory of ancestors from different countries also. So we can look at different areas. Cherry Button wrote an article about Beltane and about Celtic Witch and the Golden Hecate, the Goddess Hecate. I should actually reread these. It's been many, many years since I read these. I'm definitely going to reread these again. Alright, so that should give you a good idea, hopefully. As I said, traditional witchcraft is probably impossible to actually define and put in a box. But that should give you an idea, a good starting point, let's put it that way. And one of my favourite paths. Traditional witchcraft is kind of your getting your hands dirty type of witchcraft. It's really digging in the earth and digging in the ground. It's not that clean, sterile type of work that you find with a lot of ceremonial magic and things like that. It really is getting down and dirty. So I think, and I do think a lot of what has ventured down into the left-hand path type of practices did originate somewhere within traditional witchcraft, because there's a lot of basis for Luciferianism in traditional witchcraft. There are a lot of factions within traditional witchcraft that venture into the aspects of Tubal Cain, like Robert Cochrane did himself. There's the clan of Tubal Cain, which came out of that. So there's a lot of people give emphasis to the Grigori, the Watchers. There's emphasis on spirits like Azazel, Shemyaza, Lucifer being the light bringer and the light bearer. So there's a lot of aspects within traditional witchcraft that I think kind of bled over into left-hand path practices. Unfortunately, it got taken in a slightly different direction. And but there's a lot of overlap, tons of overlap between the two, specifically Luciferianism, and even I would even say demonolatry itself. The areas of focus are the areas of focus, as in land-based, are very diverse, very different. But we can bring in Hermeticism into traditional witchcraft also. A lot of the stuff that we find came out of and developed within the European basis, did find its way out of Freemasonry. And there's a lot of, there's a great influence of Hermeticism within Freemasonry. So that all came from the Egyptian, Middle Eastern area anyway. So lots and lots of fuzzy lines, unfortunately. So all very difficult to put into boxes. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there, and hopefully that made some sense and will give you some direction and a starting point. Okay, cheers for now. Bye bye.